The galaxy had always looked down on humans. For centuries, other species had seen Earth as a small, weak planet, home to a stubborn but primitive race. Humans had traveled to nearby stars, set up colonies on Mars, Titan, and a few outposts on distant moons, but no one took them seriously. The Galactic Empire had grown strong, ruling over thousands of systems. Its fleets patrolled the borders of its territories, enforcing laws and controlling trade. When the Empire passed Decree 77, officially declaring humans as slaves, the galaxy laughed. On Earth, the news hit like a storm. Commander Elias Grant sat in his small office on Mars Station, staring at the screen. His face was pale and his hands were shaking. The announcement had been broadcast across all human colonies. Families had been taken, ships confiscated, and every human was now officially property of the Empire. The colonies were terrified. Humans had never faced this kind of threat before. Elias thought of his sister, Lily. She had been studying on the Europa outpost, preparing for a mission to explore beyond the solar system. The patrols had arrived without warning. They took her along with many others. He clenched his fists. He felt anger and fear, but mostly he felt a deep, burning fire inside. Humans would not be slaves. At the same time on Earth, people gathered in cities watching the news on big screens. Families held their children close. Mothers and fathers whispered promises they were not sure they could keep. Streets were filled with voices calling for help, but there was no one to answer. The Galactic Empire had underestimated humans. They thought Earth would beg, that humans would obey. They had no idea what was coming. In Washington, Admiral Laura Bennett met with the other leaders of Earth. The room was tense. The holographic map in front of them showed every human colony under Empire control. Red dots marked the captured settlements. Human ships were grounded. Trade routes had been blocked. The Empire thought humanity was powerless. "We cannot let this stand," Laura said, her voice steady but filled with fire. "We have waited too long for peace. They think we are weak. They think we will submit. They are wrong." Her words sparked hope in the room. People began to talk about hidden fleets, secret weapons, and long-forgotten plans buried beneath Earth's surface. The Empire had not seen humanity at its full strength. They had not seen the years of preparation, the silent research, the machines built in secret. On Mars Station, Elias was assembling a team. Engineers, pilots, scientists, all of them knew that the coming fight would not be easy. They worked day and night repairing old ships, installing new engines, and hiding weapons that were more advanced than anything the Empire could imagine. The silence of humanity was not submission. It was preparation. The galaxy continued to underestimate humans. Traders and diplomats tried to send messages hoping to negotiate. The Empire laughed at these attempts. They thought humans would beg for mercy, but no messages came from Earth. No fleet movements were reported. Only silence. The silence made the Empire arrogant. They did not realize that the quiet was the sound of a storm gathering. On Titan, scientists tested new energy weapons, ones that could cut through the strongest metal shields. On Mars, engineers worked on stealth ships that could move unseen across the galaxy. Elias checked every system, every ship, making sure they were ready. He could feel the tension in the air. Every human on these colonies understood what was happening. This was not just about freedom. This was about survival, and about sending a message the galaxy would never forget. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the leaders gathered in a secret chamber beneath the ruins of an old military base. They had maps of every Imperial outpost, every patrol route, every colony under control. The room was filled with men and women who had once served the Empire, studied its tactics, and knew its weaknesses. Now, all of that knowledge would be used against it. Elias's sister Lily was not the only one taken. Hundreds of thousands of humans had been captured across the colonies. Families were separated. Slaves worked in mines and factories on distant planets. The Empire thought they could break human spirits with fear. They were wrong. Every captured human was telling a story of courage and resistance. Even in chains, humans found ways to fight back, to sabotage, to survive. As preparations continued, the first strikes were planned. Laura Bennett outlined the strategy. "We will hit them where they are weakest first," she said. "The Velran Dominion controls the slave trade. If we destroy it, we send a message. Every colony they have taken will see that humanity is not weak. We fight for our people, and we fight for every human who cannot fight for themselves." Elias and his team reviewed the plans. Every detail mattered. Every calculation had to be perfect. The Empire had technology, but humans had intelligence, creativity, and determination. They would use what the Empire did not expect. They would strike fast, strike hard, and strike without mercy. On Europa, miners whispered about the coming attacks. Scientists in laboratories held their breath, waiting for the day they could join the fleet. Children asked questions that adults could not answer, but even they felt the tension in the air, the sense that something monumental was about to happen. Humans had been underestimated, and now the galaxy would see what that meant. The first fleet of human ships moved quietly. They were small, designed for speed and stealth. Elias commanded the lead ship. Every pilot knew the stakes. If they were caught too early, the Empire would destroy them. But they were ready to risk everything. The ship slipped past Imperial patrols using hidden routes and old maps of uncharted space. The galaxy had thought humanity was weak. They had thought humans would beg for mercy. They had no idea what they were about to face. Back on Earth, Laura Bennett monitored the movements of the fleet. Her eyes were sharp, her mind calculating every possibility. She knew that the first strike would be only the beginning. The Empire would respond with force, but humans had patience. They had waited too long, trained too hard, and prepared for this moment for decades. This was the beginning of humanity's response, a response that would not end until every human was free, and the galaxy had learned a lesson it would never forget. In the Empire, the leaders celebrated. They sent patrols to check on the humans. They laughed at the thought of humans trying to fight back. No one had told them that humans had learned from every battle, every failure, every trick in the galaxy. They had taken what they saw and surpassed it. They had waited silently while the Empire grew arrogant, and now the time had come to act. The first attack began in the shadows. Small ships slipped into the Velran Dominion's ports, disabling shields and communication systems. Explosions erupted silently, and fleets were destroyed before anyone knew what had happened. Messages were sent back to Earth. The human fleets were moving, and the Empire had not yet understood the full scale of what was happening. Elias Grant watched the reports come in. The first victory was small but significant. It was the beginning of something the galaxy had never seen. Humans fighting not for territory, not for wealth, but for freedom and honor. The message was clear. Humans were not to be enslaved. Humans were not weak, and the fury of Earth, long silent, was awakening. The galaxy began to whisper rumors. Traitors and diplomats spoke in hushed tones. "Did you hear?" they said. "The humans are attacking the Velran Dominion. Entire fleets gone." The Empire tried to deny it, but the evidence was everywhere. Humans were striking, and the Empire did not know how to stop them. On Mars Station, Elias smiled grimly. He thought of his sister, of all the families taken by the Empire. He thought of every colony that had been captured. And he thought of Earth waiting patiently, silently, until the time was right. Humans were not asking for mercy. Humans were taking it. The fire inside them burned brighter than the stars, and the galaxy was about to learn what that fire meant. By the time the first day ended, the Empire had lost more than it could count. Patrols were missing. Outposts were destroyed. Communications were gone. And through it all, the humans did not celebrate. They only prepared for the next strike, knowing that this was only the beginning. The galaxy had underestimated humans. They had assumed patience meant weakness. They had assumed silence meant fear. They were wrong. Humanity was ready. Humanity was angry. And humanity would not stop until every system that declared them slaves understood the cost of underestimating Earth. And deep in the shadows of Earth, the old fleets and hidden weapons waited, silent and ready. The galaxy would soon learn that the fury of humans was unstoppable, and the day of reckoning had only just begun. The galaxy still did not understand humans. When the first attacks came, many believed they were small, isolated strikes. They thought Earth had only a few ships, a few hidden weapons. But humanity had prepared for this day for decades. The silence before the storm had been deliberate. Every planet, every colony, every fleet had been readied, and the time to act had come. Elias Grant flew his lead ship silently through the dark of space. The Velran Dominion was still in chaos after the first strike, but they were reorganizing their defenses. His crew worked quickly, checking engines, weapons, and shields. Every detail mattered. One mistake and the Empire would crush them. But Elias knew the humans had advantages they had never shown. They had intelligence, creativity, and determination. They had waited quietly while the Empire grew arrogant, thinking humans were weak. Now the Empire would learn otherwise. Admiral Laura Bennett sat in the command center on Mars Station. The room was filled with human leaders, scientists, and pilots. They watched the screens, tracking every movement of Imperial fleets. "We cannot stop," she said firmly. "Every ship we destroy is a message. Every planet we free brings us closer to the day we can call our people home." Humans in colonies watched with hope. Even the slaves, the captured humans working in mines and factories across the Empire, felt the stirring of courage. They began small acts of resistance. They sabotaged machinery, caused delays, and left messages for the approaching fleets. The message was simple but powerful. Humanity never surrenders. The first major target of the human fleets was the Velran Dominion's central trading hub. The station was huge, filled with slave shipments, weapons depots, and control centers. From orbit, it looked impossible to destroy without massive losses. But the humans had prepared. Using stealth drives, they approached undetected. They released small drones that disabled the station's defenses quietly. When the final signal was given, the orbital cannons struck. Explosions tore through the station. Entire sections were destroyed and the debris scattered across space. The Velran fleets tried to fight back, but the humans had already moved to strike them in smaller, more vulnerable locations. In hours, what had seemed like an untouchable stronghold was reduced to nothing. The galaxy watched in disbelief. Elias Grant breathed deeply as he watched the destruction from his cockpit. There was no joy in victory, only focus. Every human who had been enslaved or harmed would be remembered. Every colony that had been lost would be fought for. They were not only striking for freedom, they were striking for respect. Back on Earth, Laura Bennett oversaw the operations. Communication channels were filled with reports from every corner of the colonies. Hidden bases on Titan, Mars, and Europa sent messages of readiness. Scientists reported that new weapons were prepared, ships were repaired, and fleets were mobilizing across the solar system. Humanity was not only fighting back, they were ready to finish the war. In the Empire, panic spread. News of the destruction of the Velran Dominion reached the High Council. Their commanders had assumed humans could not fight effectively across multiple systems. They had underestimated the speed, coordination, and intelligence of humanity. Messages between Imperial fleets were now filled with confusion and fear. Patrols that had once enforced the slavery decree were being destroyed before they could even respond. On Titan, a young pilot named Hannah Cole prepared her ship for battle. She was only 22, but she had trained for this moment her entire life. Her father had been captured by the Empire years ago, and she had grown up hearing stories of slavery, suffering, and injustice. Now she had the chance to fight back. Her hands gripped the controls and she whispered to herself, "For my family, for everyone." Hannah was part of a small strike team targeting supply convoys. The convoys were heavily armed, but humans used speed, agility, and surprise to overwhelm them. Ships that had once seemed untouchable fell quickly. Convoys carrying slaves, weapons, and resources were destroyed. The human pilots did not celebrate, but they felt a sense of pride. Every victory was proof that the Empire could be defeated. Elias and Laura coordinated the attacks across the galaxy. The human fleets moved like a single organism, striking, retreating, and regrouping. Every action was calculated. Every plan had been tested in simulations for years. The Empire could no longer assume that humans were weak or predictable. Humans adapted, learned, and became stronger with every encounter. Meanwhile, the captured humans on the Empire's worlds began to act. In the mines of Trelos 9, workers sabotaged the machines used to extract resources. On Varan 6, families left messages for incoming human fleets, telling them where patrols were stationed and where defenses were weakest. Even in chains, humans found ways to resist. They were not slaves in spirit, no matter what the Empire declared. Elias Grant received a report from one of these locations. The captured humans had destroyed an entire processing facility before the human fleet even arrived. The courage and determination of those who had been taken fueled the fleet's morale. "We are not alone," Elias said to his crew. "Every human in the galaxy stands with us. Every strike we make honors them." The Empire tried to respond. Massive fleets were sent to intercept the human forces. Thousands of ships moved toward Earth's colonies, hoping to crush the rebellion before it grew stronger. But humans had anticipated this. The fleets were split into smaller units using tactics the Empire had never seen. They struck from multiple directions at once, overwhelming Imperial defenses. Entire armadas were destroyed and the survivors were forced to retreat. In the center of the galaxy, the High Council was frantic. They had declared humans slaves, expecting compliance, and instead faced annihilation. Entire systems that had been loyal to the Empire began to question their allegiance. Some even began to secretly aid humans, providing supplies, information, or shelter. The Empire's control was slipping, faster than anyone could have imagined. Elias Grant and Laura Bennett met briefly in a secure communication channel. They both knew the next phase of the plan would be the most difficult. They would strike at the heart of the Empire itself, where the slave trade had begun and the leaders who had declared humans slaves were located. It was risky, but humanity had nothing to lose and everything to gain. The fleets prepared for the next strike. Ships were repaired, weapons were loaded, and crews rested only briefly before the next mission. Every human involved knew the stakes. If they failed, the colonies could be recaptured and countless lives would be lost. But if they succeeded, the galaxy would finally see the strength of humanity. In the meantime, the Empire underestimated the humans again. They assumed the strikes would be small and localized. They did not understand that humanity's strength was not only in ships or weapons. It was in the mind, heart, and spirit of every human. The attacks were coordinated, precise, and unstoppable. Humans did not act recklessly. They acted with purpose. Every ship, every weapon, every strike was part of a plan that the Empire could not predict. On Earth, citizens watched the news of the human victories. Families cheered, tears in their eyes. Children learned for the first time that humans were not weak, that they could fight and win against impossible odds. Schools and training centers were filled with young people preparing to join the fleets. Humanity was becoming stronger, not just through technology, but through courage and belief in their own power. As the first week of strikes ended, the Velrun Dominion was gone. Imperial fleets were scattered. Systems that had supported the slavery decree were in chaos, and humanity did not stop. Every day brought new victories, new strikes, and new challenges. Humans learned from every encounter, growing smarter and more effective. Elias Grant looked out at the stars from his ship. The universe seemed different now. It was no longer a place where humans were small and powerless. It was a place where humans could fight, survive, and triumph. The fire that had been building for decades was now burning brightly, and the galaxy was beginning to feel its heat. Even the Empire could sense it. Panic was spreading among the High Council, among the commanders, and among the loyal fleets. The humans were no longer a minor threat. They were a force that could not be ignored. And as long as the humans fought for their freedom, as long as they burned with the desire for justice, the galaxy would never be the same again. Every colony, every hidden base, every human still enslaved became part of the plan. Humans did not fight alone. They fought together, united by the knowledge that their freedom was worth everything. They had waited silently for too long, and now the galaxy would learn the true meaning of human fury. And deep in the shadows, on Earth and hidden colonies, the larger fleets and more powerful weapons waited. The galaxy had seen only the beginning. The human response was only growing stronger. The Empire's arrogance had awakened something it could never control, and the fury of humanity was rising, ready to sweep across the stars with unstoppable force. The galaxy had begun to understand one thing. Humans were not weak. After the strikes on the Velrun Dominion and the other colonies, the Empire realized that Earth's patience had been only a disguise. Now humanity moved with speed, intelligence, and determination that no one could predict. Their fleets were not just attacking, they were changing the course of the war. Elias Grant piloted his ship in silence, moving toward the Imperial capital, Narathia Prime. The stars outside the window looked calm, but Elias knew the storm ahead was unlike anything the galaxy had ever faced. He checked the status of every ship in his fleet. Shields were strong, weapons were charged, crews were ready. Everyone understood what was coming. They would strike at the heart of the Empire. Admiral Laura Bennett watched from the Mars Station Command Center. The screens displayed the movements of human fleets across the galaxy. "This is it," she said quietly. "The heart of the Empire. If we succeed here, the galaxy will know that humans cannot be controlled, cannot be broken, and will never submit." The Imperial High Council had sensed the threat, but they did not understand it. They sent massive fleets to intercept the humans before they could reach Narathia Prime. Thousands of ships, fully armed, moved through space with confidence. They believed the humans would be stopped. They believed the Empire's strength was too great to challenge. They were wrong. Elias led the first wave. His ship moved silently through the shadows, using new stealth technology developed by human engineers. The fleet slipped past the outer defenses of the Imperial Armada. In minutes, they were inside the line of battle. The Empire had not anticipated that humans would strike with such precision and coordination. Explosions erupted as the humans attacked. Imperial ships tried to respond, but they were scattered and confused. The humans had studied every known tactic of the Empire, and they used that knowledge to strike from unexpected angles. Ships that had once been thought invincible were destroyed in moments. The Imperial commanders shouted orders, but their fleets were breaking apart faster than they could control. On the surface of Narathia Prime, civilians watched in fear. The city's spires and towers glowed with lights from the approaching battle. Humans did not just attack ships. They targeted infrastructure, communication hubs, and supply centers. The planet's systems were crippled, leaving the Empire unable to coordinate defense. The calm arrogance of the High Council was replaced with panic. Inside his ship, Elias felt the weight of responsibility. Every strike had a purpose. Every maneuver was designed to weaken the Empire without unnecessary waste. He thought of the humans enslaved on distant planets, of his sister Lily, and of all the families torn apart by the Empire's cruelty. He had a duty to protect them and to strike back with the full force of humanity's fury. The first wave cleared the initial defenses, but the Empire had not yet revealed its full power. A massive battle fleet moved from the inner systems, determined to crush the human attackers. It was larger than any fleet Elias had seen, thousands of ships forming a wall of metal and fire. But humans were not deterred. Using speed, precision, and surprise attacks, they struck at the weak points of the fleet. Ships exploded, engines failed, and the Imperial line began to crumble. Meanwhile, on Titan, young pilots like Hannah Cole flew small, agile ships. They were the ones who could move quickly, dodge fire, and strike at the enemy's supply lines. Every victory, no matter how small, contributed to the larger plan. Supplies for the Empire's fleets were destroyed. Communication channels were jammed. The humans' attacks were calculated and coordinated, leaving the Empire struggling to respond. In orbit above Narathia Prime, the human fleet prepared for the final strike. The heart of the Empire was heavily defended, but humans had learned to fight in ways no other species could anticipate. They used stealth, speed, and overwhelming force at precise moments. The Empire had controlled the galaxy for centuries, but humans had learned every weakness, every flaw, and they were about to exploit them. Elias gave the command. The fleet moved as one. The first wave hit the outer stations and defense platforms. Explosions shook the orbit. Imperial soldiers and commanders struggled to respond. Panic spread as humans struck again and again. Every attack was a calculated blow, removing the Empire's ability to resist. Laura Bennett coordinated from Mars. "Focus on the core systems," she ordered. "Every strike must bring us closer to the center of power. Every ship destroyed weakens their ability to fight." The humans moved in perfect synchronization, each team knowing its role, each ship playing its part. On the surface of Narathia Prime, citizens ran for safety as orbital strikes destroyed key defense centers. Buildings collapsed, fires spread, and communication networks failed. The Empire had believed humans would fight with limited strength, but the attacks were relentless. Every strike sent a message. Humans would not stop until justice was done. Elias watched as the final defenses were breached. Imperial ships were retreating, systems were failing, and the path to the High Council was open. The humans moved forward, careful and precise. There was no chaos in their attacks, only purpose and skill. Each move was designed to dismantle the Empire's power efficiently and decisively. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, humans on other planets continued their own missions. Sabotage, raids, and small strikes weakened the Empire's resources. Communication systems were disrupted, supply lines destroyed, and fleets forced to retreat. Every human, whether on a ship or a hidden base, contributed to the growing strength of humanity. Elias felt a mix of determination and sadness. He knew the destruction was necessary, but he also knew the cost. Innocent lives were caught in the battles, and entire cities were damaged. But the humans had no choice. The Empire had declared them slaves, destroyed families, and thought their patience meant weakness. Humanity had to respond, and they had to respond with full force. Finally, the fleet reached the heart of the Imperial capital. Narathia Prime's central command tower stood tall, a symbol of the Empire's power. Human ships surrounded it, preparing for the final assault. Laura Bennett's voice came through the communication channel. "This is the moment. Every human enslaved, every colony lost, every injustice done, it all ends here. Strike with precision, strike with purpose, and remember why we fight." The first strikes hit the command tower. Explosions tore through walls and corridors. Systems failed, alarms rang, and the High Council scrambled to respond. Human fighters moved inside the orbit, targeting specific structures and defense units. The Empire's power, which had seemed absolute, began to crumble under the relentless attacks. Elias led the final wave. His ship fired precise energy blasts at the tower's control center. The structure shook, lights flickered, and the High Council realized the humans were unstoppable. Panic spread. Ships tried to escape, but the humans had blocked the exits. Every move of the Empire was anticipated and countered. On the planet below, the citizens watched in fear and awe. The humans attacking from space were destroying what had seemed invincible. Fires raged across the city, alarms sounded, and the central tower crumbled. Humans were striking with a precision no one had imagined, and the Empire's heart was failing. Elias felt a surge of pride and responsibility. He thought of every human enslaved, every family separated, every colony lost. They had prepared for this moment for decades. Humanity had been underestimated, mocked, and oppressed. Now the Empire faced the consequences. The human fleet continued its attacks, dismantling defenses, destroying weapon systems, and cutting off communication channels. The Empire was falling, not because of luck, but because humans had planned, prepared, and fought with skill, intelligence, and courage. By the time the battle ended, Narathia Prime was in ruins. The High Council had been destroyed, their fleets scattered, and the command systems dismantled. Humanity had struck at the heart of the Empire, and won. The galaxy watched in shock. The Empire that had ruled for centuries, that had enslaved countless humans, was now powerless. Elias and Laura communicated briefly. "This is only the beginning," she said. "The Empire may try to rebuild, but they have seen the strength of humanity. They have felt our fury, and the galaxy will never forget it." Across the galaxy, humans cheered silently in their ships and hidden bases. Their first major victory against the heart of the Empire had been achieved. They had shown that no matter the size, no matter the power of their enemies, humans could fight back, and they could win. Even the captured humans on other planets sensed the change. The enslaved workers sabotaged machines and left messages for the approaching human fleets. Hope grew where there had been despair. Humanity's courage and intelligence had proven stronger than oppression. Elias Grant looked at the stars. The galaxy was changing. The Empire had fallen, but the humans' mission was not complete. There were still colonies to free, systems to secure, and injustices to correct. But one thing was certain. Humanity had awakened, and the galaxy had learned the cost of underestimating Earth. The humans did not celebrate with unnecessary pride. They prepared for the next phase, knowing that the fury of Earth was just beginning. The Empire had been wounded, but the galaxy was still full of threats. Humans would continue to strike, not out of desire for conquest. The fall of Narathia Prime sent shockwaves across the galaxy. Where once the Empire had ruled with fear, now there was chaos. The High Council had been destroyed and their fleet scattered. Every system loyal to the Empire trembled. Human attacks were no longer isolated strikes. They were unstoppable waves sweeping across the stars. Elias Grant led the fleet toward the next target, the core supply hubs of the Empire. These hubs stored weapons, resources, and captured humans. Destroying them would cripple the Empire's ability to fight and free thousands of enslaved humans. Elias studied the maps with his officers, planning every strike with precision. Each decision mattered. Every mistake could cost lives. Admiral Laura Bennett coordinated the operations from Mars Station. Every fleet movement, every strike, and every intelligence report passed through her command. She had become the central mind of humanity's war effort, ensuring that every human ship worked together. "We will hit them fast, hit them hard, and hit them where it hurts," she said to her team. "The Empire thought they could enslave us. They were wrong. We will show them what humans are capable of." The first target was a supply hub on the planet Trelos 9. Thousands of captured humans worked in factories and mines, producing weapons for the Empire. Elias led a stealth team to disable the planet's defenses. Using advanced cloaking technology, they slipped past the patrols, planting explosive charges at key locations. Within hours, the supply hub was destroyed. Machines erupted in fire, communication towers were leveled, and the enslaved humans saw a glimmer of hope for the first time in years. On Titan, Hannah Cole and her team flew in agile ships targeting the Empire's smaller fleets. Their goal was not just destruction, but disruption. Supply lines were cut, patrols destroyed, and escape routes blocked. Every success weakened the Empire's ability to fight back. The humans worked in perfect coordination. No strike was wasted. Every action had a purpose. Back on Mars, Laura monitored the progress. Reports from Trelos 9 came in rapidly. The humans enslaved there were beginning to sabotage equipment on their own, inspired by the attacks from space. Laura smiled. The spirit of humanity could not be broken. Even in chains, humans fought back, and every act of resistance strengthened the fleet. Across the galaxy, news of the human victories spread. Systems that had once been loyal to the Empire began to question their allegiance. Traders, governors, and minor species started secretly aiding the humans, providing intelligence, supplies, and safe passage. The Empire had ruled through fear, but humans had shown courage, precision, and intelligence. Fear had lost its power. The next strike was on the imperial industrial planet of Varan 6. The planet produced ships and weapons for the Empire. Destroying it would cripple their war effort for months. Elias led the fleet in a coordinated attack, splitting into smaller units to hit multiple targets at once. The planet's defenses were strong, but humans had anticipated every move. Energy shields failed under precise attacks, and entire factories were destroyed before the Empire could react. On the ground, the enslaved humans joined the attacks. They sabotaged production lines, destroyed equipment, and freed those who had been captured. Humanity was no longer fighting only from space. They were fighting everywhere, with every human contributing in some way. The Empire tried to respond. Massive fleets moved to intercept the humans, hoping to stop their attacks before more systems fell. But humans had learned from every battle. They used speed, coordination, and intelligence to strike weak points. Imperial fleets were defeated again and again. Ships that had once seemed invincible were destroyed. Commanders struggled to respond, and panic spread through the Empire's ranks. Elias and Hannah coordinated their fleets in space battles that lasted for hours. They moved with precision, covering each other, striking at vulnerabilities, and retreating before the Empire could regroup. Every ship in the human fleet played a role. Engineers repaired damage, pilots launched strikes, and scientists hacked enemy systems to disable weapons. Humanity had become a single, unstoppable force. Meanwhile, Laura Bennett planned the final stage of the campaign. The remaining Empire systems still loyal to the High Council were gathering fleets to defend themselves. Humans could strike at them directly, but Laura knew that careful planning was required. The Empire still had power, but humans had patience, intelligence, and determination. Every move would be calculated, every strike precise. The next major attack targeted the slave trade stations scattered across the outer systems. These stations held thousands of humans forced to work in factories, mines, and labor camps. Humanity's goal was simple: liberate the captives and destroy the Empire's ability to enslave anyone again. Elias's fleet approached the first station in silence. Using stealth and advanced technology, they disabled defenses and communication arrays. Explosives were deployed, destroying the station entirely. The humans inside watched in amazement as the ships outside moved with precision, freeing those who had been enslaved. Hannah Cole led a separate strike team to another station on the edge of the galaxy. Their mission was dangerous. Patrols were heavy and the station was fortified. But the humans moved with coordination, striking from multiple directions at once. Explosions rocked the station, alarms blared, and the enslaved humans joined the fight from within. Within hours, the station was destroyed, and hundreds of humans were freed. Back on Earth, civilians cheered quietly as reports of the victories came in. Families hugged each other, tears in their eyes. Children learned for the first time that humans could fight, survive, and win against impossible odds. Humanity had risen as one, not for conquest, but for freedom, justice, and respect. The Empire's leaders grew desperate. They had lost multiple systems, fleets, and supply lines. The High Council tried to reorganize, but humans were always a step ahead. Every move of the Empire was anticipated and countered. They had underestimated humans for centuries, and now they faced the consequences. Elias Grant watched the galaxy from his ship. Stars streaked past as the fleet moved from system to system. He thought of every enslaved human, every lost colony, and every family torn apart by the Empire. Humanity had been pushed to the edge, but they had risen stronger. Every strike sent a clear message. No one could enslave humans, and anyone who tried would pay the price. The next stage of the campaign involved cutting off communication and supply lines between the remaining Imperial systems. Humans used advanced hacking techniques to disable communication arrays, while small fleets struck supply ships and patrols. The Empire's forces were disorganized, confused, and losing strength rapidly. Humanity moved like a single organism, striking efficiently and decisively. On the ground, enslaved humans in the remaining systems began to act. Factories were sabotaged, supply lines disrupted, and patrols ambushed. The spirit of resistance spread like wildfire. Every act of courage contributed to the larger plan. Humanity was no longer fighting in small groups. They were a united force across the galaxy. Elias and Hannah coordinated the fleet from orbit, ensuring that every strike was effective. They communicated with human forces on the ground, sharing intelligence and adjusting plans in real time. Humans were fighting everywhere, and the Empire had no way to stop them. Every victory brought freedom to those who had been enslaved and weakened the Empire further. Laura Bennett watched the progress on Mars. She knew the final stage was approaching. The Empire's remaining systems were vulnerable, and humans were ready to strike decisively. Every fleet had been prepared, every weapon calibrated, and every plan tested. The galaxy had never seen humans fight like this, and the Empire would soon realize the full extent of their power. The attacks continued for days. Entire supply hubs, patrol fleets, and labor stations were destroyed. Humans liberated thousands of enslaved people who joined the fight immediately. The Empire had relied on fear, control, and intimidation. Humans relied on courage, intelligence, and unity. The difference was clear. Elias Grant looked at the stars and thought about the future. Humanity had proven itself capable of defeating the Empire, but the campaign was not over. There were still systems to free, fleets to destroy, and justice to deliver. Humanity was no longer quiet. They were no longer patient. The fury of Earth had awakened, and the galaxy was beginning to understand that humans were not to be underestimated. The Empire tried to regroup, sending every remaining fleet toward Earth and the liberated systems. But humans had anticipated this. Fleets moved in coordinated attacks, ambushing the enemy before they could strike. Supply lines were destroyed, command systems disrupted, and morale shattered. The Empire's power continued to crumble, and fear spread across its remaining worlds. On Narathia Prime and other key planets, citizens watched in awe as humans attacked with precision, strength, and intelligence. Entire cities were freed from Imperial control. The enslaved humans who had survived began to rebuild, inspired by the courage and determination of those who had come to liberate them. Elias Grant knew that humanity's message was clear. The Empire had thought they could enslave humans, but they had underestimated their strength. Humans had been pushed too far, and now the galaxy would remember the fury of Earth. And deep in the hidden bases on Earth, the larger fleets and powerful weapons waited. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. Human fleets moved with precision and purpose, cutting through the last remnants of the Empire. The systems that had once enforced slavery, oppression, and fear now trembled. Humanity had struck, and every strike was perfect. Every captured human, every enslaved family, every lost colony was being avenged. Elias Grant piloted his lead ship toward the final Imperial stronghold, a massive station called the Core Citadel. It floated above a barren planet heavily armed, shielded, and filled with the remaining leadership of the Empire. The High Council had tried to escape before, but humans had anticipated their movements. There was no escape this time. Humanity would end the Empire's reign completely. Admiral Laura Bennett coordinated the fleets from Mars Station. The screens glowed with real-time reports from every strike. "This is the final push," she said. "Every ship, every weapon, every human involved must act as one. The Empire thought it could enslave us. It thought our patience meant weakness. It will learn the cost of underestimating humans." Elias looked at his crew. Pilots, engineers, and soldiers all shared the same expression: determination. Fear had no place here. Humans had been pushed too far, humiliated, enslaved, and mocked. Every strike, every maneuver, every calculation had one purpose: ensure the Empire could never rise again. The first wave of attack struck the outer defenses of the Core Citadel. Explosions ripped through the shields, sending debris into space. Imperial fleets tried to respond, but humans had divided the defenses, targeting weak points and cutting off reinforcements. Ships that had seemed untouchable were destroyed with ease. The Empire had faced humans before, but nothing like this. On the planet below, enslaved humans and oppressed civilians watched from hiding. Many had begun to resist on their own, sabotaging factories, patrols, and communication arrays. When the human fleet attacked, these small acts of courage turned into coordinated strikes. Humanity was fighting not only from space, but from within the Empire itself. Hannah Cole led a strike team in small, agile ships. Their mission was to disable the orbital cannons and defense arrays protecting the Citadel. Using speed and precision, they dodged heavy fire, moved close to the stations, and struck at exactly the right points. Explosions tore through the weapons platforms, leaving the Imperial defenses crippled. Every strike was followed by another, creating a chain of destruction the Empire could not stop. Elias's ship moved closer to the Citadel. He could see the massive structure, shining in the darkness of space. The High Council was still inside, coordinating what they could. But humanity had studied every known tactic, every possible escape route. The Empire's leaders had nowhere to run. The Core Citadel would fall. From Mars, Laura Bennett gave the final commands. Strike the core systems. Disable the energy grids. Destroy their command centers. No one escapes. Humanity will not forgive, and we will not forget. Human fleets divided, attacking simultaneously from all directions. Shields failed under precise strikes, engines overloaded, and communication networks went dark. The Empire had no way to coordinate its defenses. Inside the Core Citadel, panic spread. Leaders shouted orders that went unanswered. Soldiers were confused, ships were destroyed, and every plan was falling apart. They had thought humans were weak, that patience meant fear. Now they realized how wrong they had been. Humanity had waited, trained, and prepared for this moment. The fury of Earth was unstoppable. Elias Grant fired the first strike at the Citadel's main energy core. Explosions rocked the station, fires spread, and alarms blared across the structure. Hannah's team hit the weapons platforms, while other squads disabled communication arrays. The Imperial fleets attempted to regroup, but they were moving in chaos, unable to counter the human tactics. On the surface of the planet, enslaved humans began to rise. Factories were destroyed, guards overpowered, and communication towers taken over. Every human who had suffered at the hands of the Empire contributed to the final victory. Their courage was the fuel for the fleet above. Elias's ship fired again, this time hitting the Citadel's command center. The walls shook, energy systems failed, and the High Council's leaders realized they had no control. They tried to escape using the remaining shuttlecraft, but human forces had blocked every exit. One by one, the leaders were captured or destroyed. Humanity was reclaiming its dignity, one strike at a time. Hannah Cole maneuvered her ship to strike the remaining defense drones. Using precise bursts, she destroyed every weapon in her path. The Citadel's shields were down, its engines overloaded. The station trembled under the relentless attacks of human ships. It was only a matter of time before it fell completely. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, human fleets struck the remaining Imperial colonies. Supply lines were destroyed, patrols defeated, and enslaved humans liberated. Every strike weakened the Empire, and every liberated human joined the fight. Humanity's strength was multiplying with every victory. Elias watched the Citadel as the final energy cores exploded. A massive shockwave radiated outward, destroying the station and the remaining Imperial ships in orbit. Silence followed. The galaxy had never seen such complete destruction. The Empire's central command, the High Council, and its remaining fleets were gone. Humanity had won. On the planet below, humans emerged from hiding. The enslaved workers, scientists, and families cheered. The cities were damaged, but freedom had returned. The humans who had fought above and those who had suffered below were finally united. The Empire had tried to enslave them, but humanity had proved that nothing could break their spirit. Back on Mars, Laura Bennett watched the reports of the Citadel's destruction. "It is over," she said quietly. "The Empire has fallen, humanity is free, and the galaxy has learned a lesson it will never forget." The room was silent for a moment as everyone processed the reality. Humans had faced a galactic power and had won. The cost had been great, but the victory was complete. Elias Grant looked at the stars. For centuries, humans had been underestimated, mocked, and oppressed. They had been declared slaves, treated as weak, and left to suffer. But now the galaxy knew the truth. Humans were strong, intelligent, and unstoppable when pushed too far. Humanity had risen from silence to fury, and their power had reshaped the stars. Across the galaxy, former Imperial worlds sent messages of surrender. Systems that had once obeyed the High Council offered support, resources, and allegiance. The Empire had fallen, and the humans had proven that no force could enslave them. Every system, every fleet, and every human who had been oppressed contributed to the final victory. Even in the aftermath, humans did not seek conquest. They did not occupy the ruined planets or rebuild the Empire in their own image. They left messages carved on walls and planets. "We only wanted respect. Never again will humans be underestimated." The galaxy would remember this day forever. Hannah Cole returned to Earth orbit with her team. Exhausted but proud, she looked at the blue planet below. For centuries, humans had fought to survive, to be free, and to be respected. Now they had achieved that. The fury of Earth had changed the galaxy, and humanity had emerged stronger, wiser, and more united than ever. Elias Grant returned his ship to Mars Station. His crew disembarked, tired but victorious. They had fought battles across the galaxy, liberated the enslaved, and destroyed a powerful empire. Every human who had trained, fought, or suffered for this moment had contributed. The galaxy would never forget the fury of humanity, and humans would never forget their own strength. In the years that followed, humans rebuilt their colonies, repaired the damage from the wars, and ensured that no species would ever attempt to enslave them again. Humanity had faced impossible odds and had triumphed. The galaxy now treated humans with respect and caution, knowing that the race once declared weak was now one of the strongest powers in the stars. Elias, Hannah, and Laura often reflected on the events. They remembered every life lost, every colony captured, and every battle fought, but they also remembered the courage, intelligence, and unity of humans across the galaxy. Humanity had been pushed to the edge, but they had risen not just to survive, but to prove that no one could enslave them without consequence. And as the fleet stood down, as the freed humans returned to their homes, and as the galaxy adjusted to a new reality, one truth remained clear. Earth had remained silent for too long, but when pushed, humanity's fury was unstoppable. The galaxy had witnessed the cost of arrogance, the strength of preparation, and the power of a species that refused to bow. Humanity had shown that silence was not weakness and fury was not random. It was deliberate, precise, and unstoppable. The Empire had fallen. The enslaved were free. Humanity had reclaimed its place among the stars. And the galaxy would never underestimate humans again.